This week, we're diving into one of the hottest and sometimes misunderstood corners of the retro gaming scene, emulation-based handhelds. These are the devices that you carry decades of gaming history from Atari 2600 through to the PS2 if you spend enough money on them, all in the palm of your hands. And these handhelds came into prominence in lockdown with companies like Anbernic, Powkiddy, and Retro coming to the fore, not to mention the granddaddy of them all, the Steam Deck. So, to help us make sense of it all, I'm joined by a familiar face or voice to Retro Titans, YouTuber and retro gaming aficionado, Crazy Burger. He's perhaps best known as an Evercade expert, but he's also tested and reviewed more retro consoles than I've had hot dinners. So, he's the perfect guide for anyone curious about where to start. Crazy Burger, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Phil. Great to be back again. Just back from holiday, still struggling a bit to get back to normal time.
And what did you had a long flight? What were you playing on your flight?
On the flight, I'd actually tried to sleep in the flight back. So on the flight going, I actually generally had the Evercade EXP, which I was playing Broken Sword 2 and managed to complete that. Which
All right.
I think I'd completed once back in the day, but so I finished that. On the road back, I did play briefly on the sort of Super Pocket, the Neo Geo Super Pocket, which I've not quite put down yet. I think that was all I played. I actually took some emulation devices, but I never actually played them. I usually would take the Steam Deck because, it's basically an all-round thing, but it doesn't keep a particularly great charging on a flight. It's not ideal, but anyway, on the road back, I pretty much tried to sleep so that I could function when I got home.
Just about worked. Had to take a break. Well, what we're trying to do, listeners and viewers, if we put this, we're thinking about putting this on John's channel as well on YouTube. So we'll see whether that works or not. But for the purposes of this, it's still an audio podcast. And most of these things out there are basically YouTubers like John who put out loads and loads of stuff. And I remember when I first started, I was quite confused about what to buy and made a couple of mistakes and then eventually got into Evercade. So I think it's hopefully quite helpful to have a bit of guidance at the early stages if you're new to this. And maybe you've already got Evercade and you want to kind of dip your toe in the water in emulation handhelds, or you come to the channel via another route. It doesn't really matter. We're just going to try and give you a few pointers. Now, we know like in the hour or so that we're going to be talking about this, we know we can't cover everything. So please bear that in mind if you say, but you didn't talk about the mod, whatever it is, and we can't cover everything. So we're just going to do our best. And in an ideal world, what we're going to try and do is answer the exam question. If I was only going to buy one emulation handheld, what should it be? I don't want you to answer that straight away, John, but that's what we're going to try and do. How does that sound to you?
That sounds great. I was actually laughing there thinking, in the time that you take to upload this, Anbernic have probably released 3 different variations of their latest handheld. And I think they have slowed down a little bit, but that's what they've been like over the last 5 years. It's just
you're referring to Anbernic there?
Yes, Anbernic, definitely, yeah. They're probably the one that churn out so much handhelds. And yet, it is hard to keep up. What one do you pick? It is a minefield. So, yeah, hopefully we'll try and help a few folks.
We'll see what we can do. So, when we say emulation-based handheld, what's your kind of how would you define that, John, from a gamer's perspective?
So basically, it could be any handheld that you can play your own games, and it's basically emulated. So it's not running. It's not an original handheld. So you're playing games on an emulator, and you're not playing it on an original, like you're playing a PSP game or something, or you're playing a PS Vita, a Mega Drive. So that if you're playing it on original hardware, obviously that's hardware. That's not emulation. So these devices can play anything using emulators, apps, or whatever, or some sort of back end that they're using, like Emulation Station. And a lot of these things do come with their own sort of ROMs as well. But yeah, so emulation has took on a whole different aspect in the last 5 years. I think, as you maybe pointed out, it started out during it didn't necessarily start out at the 2020 sort of pandemic, but it definitely kicked off at that point. So many handhelds hit the market and it just went crazy after that. There was a lot of channels picked up at that point as well. But some of the things did actually hit the market maybe a year or two before that. which is when I kind of picked it up. I think obviously before we go on, one of the first things I did pick up for myself with this tiny thing here, which is a Pocket Go, and it's basically quite small. It's only about 4 inches wide. This was my first sort of delve into the sort of emulation market, and this only really plays up to like PlayStation.
So
And it
who
was,
made the Pocket Go? Was that a company? I haven't come
I
across that
think it
one.
was called BitBoy. I'm not entirely
Oh,
sure.
okay.
So this one, I don't think you can get it anymore. You might actually find it on eBay, and it was
Yeah.
only about £30 or £40. So I thought it was a nice way to get started. Now, this was about early 2020. I picked up, and it was really good fun. It is quite small with a really tiny screen, but that's what kind of got me hooked onto that type of thing.
Mm.
And it was quite fascinating playing your old sort of style games again, like some of the games you grew up with, and then trying to see how can you push these things. But this thing only obviously done up to a PlayStation 1, and it did stutter a little bit, but that's where my bug started. And once it kind of gets a hold of you, I think a lot of people maybe agree with this. Once you start to buy one, you then you look at other content creators out there. What else can I get? What else is on Amazon or wherever you get your stuff from? It kind of becomes a bit an addiction, and before you know it, you've sort of bought yourself lots of different handhelds.
I know you've got quite a few,
Yeah.
but some of the other channels that you're alluding to, with, Retro Game Core and Tech Dweeb and all those. I mean, they have got
Uh-huh.
hundreds of the damn things, and I think I mean, people call them e-waste, don't they? So I think
Yep.
that there does come a point where you're thinking, oh, this is a lot of batteries that are going to end up in the ground here at some point. But
No, it can't be good. You're right. I mean, interesting you say Retro Game Core. He actually picked up in 2020 as well. I remember him.
okay,
It's been a start out channel doing the same sort of things and covering the same handhelds. But since then, he's grew crazily. I mean, he was probably less subscribers than me at that particular point when he first started out. Now he's got like hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and
he went all in, gave up his
oh,
job and everything, didn't he? Which
but you
is
have to take your hat off because his content was fantastic, and he done a lot of written guides as well. And
yeah.
I think without channels like his, I don't think I'd be able to sort of do the content I did as well. Because I definitely referred to some of the handhelds inspiration. Certainly a decent channel, but it is such a minefield to know what to pick.
And one of the things that I think you just mentioned ROMs there. So when you buy these things, they typically come with a bunch of games on them. So wherever you're buying them from, they'll come with a card, an SD card, and it'll have 5,000, 10,000 games on it, which of course aren't legitimate. They're pirated. What's your take on that around the piracy scene? Is it something you worry about or consider when you're playing
I think at the
games?
time, yes, I was certainly worried about if I'm going to be covering this my channel, would I be in trouble? If I download anything, am I going to be in trouble? It is really a massive grey area. A lot of the handhelds that come from obviously China, generally they come from China, all come with their own memory cards, and they're usually loaded with ridiculous, maybe thousands of ROMs, which is obviously, for the best part, completely illegal. Although there are games on there that are completely free or and they can actually use. But yeah, for the best part, it's not good. It really isn't a good thing. Probably have to highlight though there are some handhelds that are released that don't actually have that type of thing on there. You have to add your own games.
Hmm.
I think the Retroid Pockets generally didn't have any ROMs included, if I
You can
recall.
you can
Probably,
buy any of them. I mean, I tend to buy mine from AliExpress,
yeah,
and you can buy most of these handheld without ROMs. You don't
yeah.
have to. It's usually a few pounds less, so you don't have to buy the cards with the ROMs on, and you
I,
can just put your own on based upon the games that you already own.
that's true,
They
but
might
it
be
is
in another
quite
format.
attractive to people. I can see why you would want to because there's loads of games already included, so you can basically it's a pick up and
Yeah,
go device. Now, it's a grey area. I looked into it, and I'm not necessarily think that we are the ones that are making or breaking any rules. It's the people that are selling it that are breaking the law. But for some reason, these companies in China just get away with it. I don't know why or how they don't get clamped down, but they seem to be above the law. I guess I don't know. It is a grey area,
well,
which
Nintendo in particular have
yeah,
been coming down hard. In fact, if a creator puts out a piece of content with Mario on, then Russ, actually the guy we just mentioned, he's had a cease and desist letter or
hmm
had some legal problems with it. There was an Italian YouTuber that actually got raided by the Italian police which I don't think was probably a particularly pleasant experience for him. Um, and he'd been putting some content out there. Now I think there's a bit more to that story. There was a rumor that he was also selling ROMs himself.
Right.
Uh, I don't know the truth of it. I haven't looked into it in any particular detail, but yeah, it is something that has to make you think as a creator. But it's also consideration as a gamer. Some people are going to have a view about, no, I only want to play licensed games. Other people will say, well, actually, you can't buy these games, as though
Mm-hmm.
that they're impossible to license, a lot of them. So for preservation purposes, why shouldn't I? And I've bought them in the past, and I might
Mm-hmm.
not own them
Yep.
now.
Yep.
So I think there are different sort of cases, and it's up to you as an individual whether you're comfortable with that or not. And another thing you can do is, and we'll perhaps get into it a little bit, is you can still buy. There's a market for buying games legitimately
Mm-hmm.
on sites like itch.io. There's tons of indie game
Mm-hmm.
developers, and that's what I do.
Yep.
For a couple of dollars, I'll download a Shane McCafferty Game Boy game, and I'll play that for a bit,
Yep.
and that works well. Or you can get into Pico 8, and you pay your £15 and you get 1,000 games. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
do on my Powkiddy. It's pretty much a Pico 8 device, because
All
it's
right.
got a square screen. It's ideal for it.
Yep. 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 So listen, I get it. I mean, for me, I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? I'm not really sure I believe everything I read about the Italian YouTuber, to be honest, whether that was a hoax. It was made.
Oh, right.
It was. I mean, I read some things that probably wasn't actually true, but if he was selling ROMs, then he's obviously breaking the law. There's a fine line there, but just creating content with stuff that includes that, then there's going to be so many people that are guilty of that, I mean, me
Yeah.
included. So there's no way they're going to clamp down on that. I'm not necessarily breaking the law. That the people breaking the law are the ones selling these ROMs that they don't
Yeah.
have the license for. So that's where you're breaking the law. But I get where Nintendo come from, because I think they were clamping down on the Switch emulators, and anybody showing a Nintendo Switch sort of content, or emulation, that is, they were clamping down on that. But is that right or not? I don't know. Who knows?
Mhm.
I think I really need someone to explain that law to me, because I think it's just such a grey area that I'm not entirely sure. But as you sort of said, there's a lot of these games. How else are we going to play these games?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way. If you think of a specific game you played in your childhood, even if you owned it, yep, you owned it. Maybe you think you have a right to actually go and download that ROM that you actually did own back in the day. But what about a specific game? How else would you buy it? You could think of an Amiga game that's really obscure. There's nowhere else to buy it. What do you do? Except they've got this downloaded ROM on a specific hardware. You can play it. So you don't really have a heck of a lot more choice.
Yeah.
So,
The only one that I feel I get a little bit on a moral high horse on is when people start doing that to indie developers that are making modern games.
mhm,
Like like a lot of those Chinese manufacturers have put Pico 8 games on there. It's like,
yeah,
no, it's not a lot to go just buy the Pico 8 subscription for
yeah,
15 quid.
yeah,
And and most of those are hobbyists, but there are people that are trying to make a living or a side hustle making modern retro games. I think,
yeah. I mean, and interestingly enough, when I first looked at Pico 8, I used this handheld, which I should maybe. This is an Anbernic handheld. This is one of my first Anbernic handhelds that I bought. And this is, I need to look in the back. I think it's an RG351P.
yeah,
Okay, the P stands for plastic, just in case. There are usually different numbers at the end of them. Usually there's an H, which is for horizontal, V for
yeah,
vertical, just in case anyone wonders. Now, this is really nice, but it only plays up to like maybe Dreamcast, perhaps. But it was good. Now, I've managed to get a Pico 8 license, and I managed to run the Explorer on that, so you can then like
yeah,
go on and explore the online Pico 8 platform and play your games that way. And I loved doing that. One of the things that I did enjoy about these emulation handheld was trying to discover how to actually use them, because sometimes the games don't run perfectly. So there's obviously that we need to sort of cover, where you need to maybe tinker about with it. And now the amount of tinkering about that I done on that handheld there was obscene, trying to get things like Amiga working properly. You have to like get kickstarts that help Amiga to run, and they have to be in specific folders
yeah.
within the background. So there's a lot that goes on to actually make that work, and not all of these are perfectly set up to be plug and play. it's fun. The first one I really enjoyed it, and I got a lot out of it. But when you get maybe more of them, it gets a bit tiresome.
Yeah,
So the fun does go away a little bit. But that first one, I sort of made lots of videos and different things from Amiga to Pico 8 to trying to make Dreamcast better. I think Dreamcast didn't work great with the stock OS, for example, which we might talk about later on the show. But downloading different operating systems, it might improve the performance of certain things like Dreamcast. So it's always worth looking into. But it does take a little bit of time to do, and might you need to be careful when you are doing it in case you break the entire console.
well, I did that accidentally.
Oh.
The first one I bought was an Anbernic.
Right.
I think you've got one actually. It's still based on that chipset, but the Game Boy-esque one. I can't remember what it's the RG
Oh, is it?
something or other.
Let's see. They are. Is it this one?
No, not that
No.
one. That's the one I'm currently playing. No, the one that's more like a traditional Game Boy. Anyway, I bought one of those. I bought that before Evercade actually, and then started tinkering without any clue what I was
Oh,
doing. I just messed the whole thing up.
is that
Something
like?
very similar to that
Yeah.
without the extra stick. I should have dug out the name
No,
for it.
yeah, I think I might have sold that one on. To be honest, I think I have sold a couple on, but yeah.
Yeah, but so you don't have to do that straight away. So if
Mm.
you're new to this and what John's talking about, tinkering with ROMs and operating systems, like we'll go into it in a little bit, but you can just play the stock, get used to the experience of having one and playing your old games that you love before you start messing around with it, because
Yes.
it's a bit of a time sink, to be honest.
Yes.
Again, it's just how you want it, but that's part of the hobby as well. So we've shown a couple of devices up on screen. So let's sort of talk about the manufacturers that have been doing those. How many of these have you bought, by the way, John? How many have you got?
It'll be 20 plus. I don't have all of them, but it would be well into the 20s, which probably doesn't sound. I mean, it might sound a lot to some people, but other people it's as if that's nothing. You know,
Yeah.
20 plus for sure. I have sold maybe about three on eBay that were selling for good value, which I got rid of. I kind of regret it now, but
See,
um,
I've probably only bought, if I'm not including Evercade, I've probably bought about 10, and I reckon I'm down. Well, I am down to
wow.
two. So
Oh,
my Anbernic and my Powkiddy. So when I've not, if I get it and I go, I just don't really, this isn't right for me, I just sell it straight away
fair enough.
just to get it out of the house. But just
Before anyone sees it, quick.
the missus still discovers things that she doesn't realise I had. So,
Ooh.
anyway, but that's another point. So, when
Mhm.
you're buying these things, there are lots of different manufacturers. We've mentioned a couple of names, like Anbernic probably being one of the most well known,
Mhm.
but they come at different price points. So, what I would think of as being probably a budget handheld is anything under £100, and then you've got the mid-range ones that's between about 100 and 300, and then you've got the high end, which is still not a lot of money when you think about the power that they've got,
Mhm.
over 300 quid, and that's where your sort of Steam Deck type stuff starts to get into that category. So what do you think is a reasonable expectation of what somebody could get at each of those price points?
I mean, if you're going,
What will you get?
I mean, if you're going for a budget device, maybe up to 40, 50 quid, then I guess you're going to be emulating up to PlayStation, maybe even Dreamcast at best, maybe
Yeah,
even a bit of PSP. But the emulation at that top end there won't be great. But anything below that, but if you're just looking at Super Nintendo and NES games, Mega Drive stuff, playing arcade stuff, then that'll be absolutely fine. Practically most devices will play that kind of thing easily. But if at that price range, don't expect the world. Don't expect to be playing PlayStation 2 games or GameCube, that type of thing. It's just not going to happen. Once you get to the sort of mid-range stuff, then maybe over 100 to 200, then you should be able to expect decent Dreamcast emulation, PSP emulation, Nintendo 64 emulation. Now, a lot of these three things were probably in the early days of the sort of 2020s, 2021. The emulation was all over the place, and quite often it still is. But in the sort of mid range, you should expect those three to be playing particularly well. Once you get to the top end range, obviously anything over 200, 300, whatever, or even Steam Deck, then you could probably expect to be playing PlayStation 2 games, GameCube games very well. The emulation for that has certainly come on leaps and bounds in the last few years. The Steam Deck can pretty much handle all of that, and a few other higher end devices from like Aya Neo, and even the Retroid Pockets. The latest ones from them should be able to play GameCube and PlayStation 2 sort of titles. So, but yeah, it is. It just depends what you want to play, what you're looking for, what type of games, what you're interested in. Even obviously, you need to take into account the different aspect ratios of the sort of what you're looking for. Like obviously, you like the sort of the clamshell type that reminds you of the sort of Game Boy Advance it was. So this is the RG355XXP. I think my eyesight's getting worse, to be honest. Back can hardly read that. But yeah, so
that's the one that's the one I've got, which is
you quite like that. And obviously, then you sort of hinted on the sort of the Game Boy original sort of style, which is a bit like that. This is actually a Kinhank. They don't really make that many handhelds. They generally make the sort of console boxes, but you get a lot of handhelds like this. These are quite nice. I prefer this one. This one is really decent. This is, let me see, read this, the RG40XXV.
So that's an Anbernic device.
This is an Anbernic.
For listeners, it's a Game Boy-esque device with a D-pad and 4 action buttons, but it's also got a little joystick on it, hasn't it?
One thumbstick. Yeah, you can obviously get these with the sort of dual thumbsticks, but for the best part, you're not going to be using those dual thumbsticks. They're in such an awkward location that actually using this thumbstick is horrible. It's really horrible on you sort of think where you're sort of reaching down. It doesn't really feel great. Using the D-pad, fine, but because of the location of that, it doesn't feel comfortable in the hands. And obviously, a lot of these things have the sort of shoulder buttons as well, which I don't know, they're not the greatest.
Since you're doing show and tell, John, I haven't got many to show and tell, but that's one with some thumbsticks. This is an RG 350. RGB 30. There you go. I need to shut my reading glasses.
Yeah, we're just as bad, aren't we?
This is a Powkiddy device.
Right.
So Powkiddy make what generally regarded as being a cheaper end of the market. So this one here has got quite a cheap plastic feel to it. It doesn't feel quality in the hand, but actually the D-pad and the buttons are absolutely fine, and it's got a nice one-to-one screen, and it's got quite a high quality screen. I think it might well be over 1,000 pixels square, but it's a really nice screen on it. So, and this cost me 45 quid on AliExpress.
Wow, that's good. Yeah.
So Powkiddy, if you're looking for something that's it won't feel like a Wii in your hand. It's a Switch rather, but it feels cheap in your hand. But if you've got 40 quid, same with Anbernic. I think they probably feel a bit higher quality Anbernic, but it is still cheap at the end of the day.
I would say the Powkiddy is probably the lowest end of the market. They don't have the best name. I think they're certainly below Anbernic and Retroid.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would say, but wait till you see my horrific Powkiddy. Okay. This is my Powkiddy. So it's a lot larger. It looks more like a Steam Deck, to be honest.
Yeah.
And it feels very cheap and plasticky. I can't remember what model this was. It was like X17. So this is an X17 model, and it does look a little bit Steam Deckish. This was before the Steam Deck, to be honest.
It's quite big, isn't it?
It is quite awkward and large. I think it was over 100 quid. I actually got it from a fellow YouTuber.
Okay.
And it's okay. It plays up to Dreamcast really, really well, but it's probably not the best handheld I've ever had. But it does look and feel extremely plastic. So I would say Powkiddy certainly are the lower end. But there's a heck of a lot in between.
Trim UI is one that I think you've got a Trim UI that you quite like. And
the Trim UI, I really like the look of the Trim UI. So I've seen, I don't know where I've seen it. I've seen on some videos of it. I've seen it was on, so you can pick this one up quite easily from Amazon. They had the Trim UI brick, which is much like the sort of blue Anbernic that I just sort of shown there. But this is the Trim UI Smart Pro, I think it was called. Let's sort of try and put this in better light, which is a really nice looking handheld.
Yeah.
Really nice quality. Everything, the layout is really good. It's really decent for, I think it was about 70 quid maybe.
Yeah, I've seen them for
almost class that as just budget still, I guess, but it has a higher feel to it. It feels like it's more of a high end quality device, but it doesn't. I think the stock OS was a bit of a problem for me. So it's one of those ones that you probably have to look at putting on another sort of operating system to get the best out of it, because
Yeah.
out the box it probably wasn't the best, but for the money and the looks, it is a really decent looking handheld, and it does look nice. And you can pick
Yeah.
these up from Amazon, no problem.
I haven't got one, but the brick. A lot of people rave about the brick,
Yeah, yeah.
which is quite popular. Another one that people manufacture that people talk about a lot, and I've actually bought 3 of these and got rid of all of them
Oh
for
wow.
various reasons. Is the Miyoo. So they were probably one of the innovators in the space with the Miyoo Mini, which is, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if you've got one of those. It's a
Right, hold on.
small.
Yep.
There we go. I thought I saw one of those in the
But
picture you sent earlier.
this was the first one. I think it was the Miyoo Mini. I think it, or was that? Yeah, I can't remember. They had a few different, but this is quite small, I guess. But this, I really liked this.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
bought one of those recently because they stopped making them, but actually I had a faulty button on it and I sent it back.
uh,
I thought, do I actually really need it anyway? So I didn't rebuy it. But loads of people love them. I mean,
now,
and it's smaller.
this was the upgraded version, which was slightly larger. The Miyoo
So that's the
Mini
Mini Mini
version
Plus. Yeah.
2, I think, or the Plus. I can't remember what the names were, but this is great. I really like this one, and if you like Pico 8, you can see the size of the screen on it. It's ideal. Really, really nice.
Yeah, people do like the
I,
Mios.
I
I think they're probably if you're looking for one, that's got to be a manufacturer to have
they're
on
a,
your list. I would say at the budget end.
yep, they're a good price as well. I'm sure it's about 60 quid for one of them. I really like the Miyoo. Yep, I
And
did.
then in the mid range, and I haven't got these.
Oh,
This is one I might think about as a Retroid because you mentioned them just now. So they've got
so so I had a couple of Retroids. These aren't really mid range. I say they're sort of still budget. This was the
oh
Retroid
yeah,
Pocket 2. I'm not sure I would go with that. I got the upgraded version, which it looks the exact same, but there was an upgraded sort of insides to it, and it ran a lot better. This was really, really good. I liked this. This is the
okay,
Retroid Pocket 2, version 2, or Plus, whatever they called it. The only issue with the Retroid Pockets is that it is a pain to set up. It's not like the Anbernics where they came with the sort of back end already set up. This was more like an Android based system where
I
you,
was about
you,
to
had,
say they're
you had
generally
to set it
Android,
up
aren't
yourself. And you had to, I think you had to add your own ROMs too, if I
they?
recall, but
Okay,
it's not straightforward to pick up. If you're a beginner, I would not recommend going here first.
okay,
Even though it looks nice, I don't think I would recommend it. Now, I did also have the Retroid Pocket 3, which would be a mid range handheld, which was fantastic. A really nice, smooth, sort of feeling device. It did look a little bit more like this SimUI
yeah,
Smart Pro. It looked a little bit like that. It had sort of shoulder buttons too, and it played pretty much everything really, really well. But I actually sold it because it was selling quite well, and I wasn't using it because I was onto the Steam Deck at this point. But I would definitely recommend that. Although at the moment I think they're up to the Retroid Pocket 5.
that
Um,
is very well reviewed. I haven't got
yes,
one, but a lot of people rave about that, and they've also got a Flip, which has got the same OLED screen,
yeah,
obviously in a clamshell form factor. So but I think both of them are around about the £200 mark,
yeah,
and they've also got the Classic, which is their attempt at doing a Game Boy esque one,
yep,
which is just over 100 quid, 120 quid, or something like that.
yeah. I think they
Uh,
had a mini as well, perhaps. I can't. I got lost with the amount of variations that they came out with, but
yeah,
they might be nudging towards the high end market, and that's definitely on my radar. I would like to get a Retroid Pocket 5, and was just trying to find a decent supplier.
yeah.
Um, I'm never too.
Where do you generally buy yours from?
So I think for a while I was purchasing most of them from a company called droids.co.uk. They also have droids.net, which they distribute worldwide and across the EU. But recently they've sort of been focusing more on the high end sort of Windows based and Android based handhelds, which are way out my sort of pocket range.
Mm,
I think they're looking at the Aya Neos, which some of them are selling for like 500 to a grand. They've got the One X player, which sells for way over £1,000 for like a Windows emulated handheld. It might be great, but there's no way I want to be paying that kind of money for what I want to do.
well, it's a gaming
Um,
PC, isn't it? In a small form factor. I mean,
yeah,
you are
yeah.
buying.
So they were my place to go. I absolutely love them. They're based in the UK. The prices are probably a little bit higher. I guess there's a small markup from obviously where they get them in China, but they were a fantastic company. Got them the stuff next day. Sometimes they got some sales on, but other than that, I kind of would probably purchase from Amazon maybe if they have some stock. But I've never been keen to go the AliExpress route. I've seen so many sort of bad sort of experiences from that. So obviously you can tell us what that's like, fella. You've
Yeah, I mean, I've
a couple of times.
bought quite a few. Well, all of the Chinese, the cheap Chinese ones I've bought from AliExpress
Yeah.
never had a problem. But if you have one problem in 12, maybe my next one will be a problem. But yeah, I've found them quite cheap. It's worth looking at the reviews because
Oh yeah.
obviously you've got a lot of independent resellers, so do check out the reviews and how many they're shifting. But I've done returned my Miyoo Mini that but with the broken button
Mm-hmm.
and decided not to buy another one. No problems, got the money back quickly. So
Right.
I've found them to be fine. But yeah,
How long do they normally take to arrive?
deliveries,
Yep.
couple of weeks
Right.
typically. Yeah, I mean they're going on a plane, so if you want it next day, yeah, no chance.
Forget it. Right. Okay.
So yeah, you've got to kind of plan it a little bit. Enough time for the buyer's regret to seep in.
There is actually a company that I got a couple of sort of free ones from, which was called Go Retroid. They're based in the US, and
Okay,
they were really good. They've got a good range. So I'd maybe have a look at that as well. Obviously, that's still going to take a couple of days to get here, but I did get a couple of units from them. I can't remember what it might have been. It might actually have been this. I think that they sent me this to sort of review on the channel. This is the sort of Game Boy Advance Flip one. I think they sent me that. I can't remember what the other one was.
right.
That's terrible, but yeah, I would definitely recommend them. But other than that, I don't think there's an awful lot of suppliers UK based that sort of sell these, which is a bit of a shame. I'm sure there's a market there that's kind of missed. There was one called. Hold on. There was one that I purchased this from. This was one of my first ones as well. This was a Super Retroid or Go Retroid Super or something. There was a website and they were actually making these in the UK, but
Okay.
they're pretty cheap and plasticky. I think I stopped using it because I dropped it. And this sort of shoulder button at the top here basically doesn't work anymore, which is a shame because it was nice. But this came basically blank. You had to follow instructions online, which they provided to sort of set it up. So it wasn't particularly straightforward. And then again, that didn't come with any ROMs either.
Is that one you had to assemble or just set up? And
No, not set up. So basically, you had to add a memory card to it and then
okay,
follow the instructions on how to sort of flash an operating system onto it from their website. And then you can then add your own sort of games and ROMs to it. But it was probably not the most straightforward to set up, and it does feel cheap and plasticky. I think it was about 120 quid at the time. I think it was called Go Super Retroid or something like that. And they might still be out there, but I'm not sure I'd recommend it. It does feel quite cheap considering that it was over 120 quid. But there's not enough places in the UK that sort of do that. But if any listeners out there know that, then it would be handy. I'd like to know more
yeah.
suppliers out there. But if you sort of put into Google, not that many places come up. It's usually
I mean, the other option is going to a place like eBay
yeah,
or
totally.
Vinted and that. But obviously, if you're buying something there, it hasn't got a guarantee.
Mhm.
I wouldn't buy something that's a cheap Chinese device off eBay because you've got no recourse really.
Yeah,
Even
yeah,
though I've sold mine that way, but personally, I wouldn't buy from eBay. I'd rather buy directly from a retailer.
yeah. If you can help it, absolutely. Yep, yep.
But there you go. So we've mentioned a little bit there operating systems. So this is if you're new to this, a whole new world. But I think my kind of shorthand for it is if the cheap devices like the cheap Anbernics and so on that we've just been talking about are generally Linux based, and the mid range and the high end is where Android and Windows start to come in a bit more. So so if you're on Android, you've got access to the Android system, the Play Store, and whatnot. Windows, obviously, everyone knows Windows, but that's my kind of rule of thumb. Is that would you say that's a good starting point? What would you add to that?
I think. Yeah, sometimes when you get, as I probably touched earlier, sometimes when you purchase these handhelds, the sort of stock operating system isn't the best. And there are quite a lot of different options out there for you to download. Basically, you need to flash this operating system onto a new memory card. But it's quite a tricky thing. I wouldn't recommend doing this if you are a beginner. But if you know what you're doing, you feel a bit confident, certainly might as well have it a go. But you need to back up your the original memory card. Obviously, you've got lots of things on there, like the sort of databases in the back end. You've got all the ROMs in there that make it work. So you need to make sure you copy that over to your computer before you sort of flash the new operating system, because then you need to copy it back over again. But I think I touched on one of the handhelds that I had. I think this was one of the original early ones that I had. This one, I flashed I think it was called Arc OS onto this, and it made the Dreamcast emulation so much better. So there are benefits to doing it if you're confident enough. The Miyoo Minis also had something called Onion OS,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
improved these things quite a lot as well and gave you lots more different options to use, but such as, like, if you bought this out of the box, you couldn't play things like C64 or Amiga. So it basically expands the possibilities that your chosen emulator could do. So it has sort of plus points and negatives. You just have to be careful what you're doing. It is quite easy to brick your sort of console that you're using. I think I nearly done that a few times. I bought a PS Vita once, and you can jailbreak that and add your own sort of software to it so that you can actually play different emulation on it. But I actually nearly bricked it. And I was actually following one of the Retro Game Core's guides online,
All
but there's
right.
a few things not right with it, and I just nearly made a total mess of it. But eventually I got
There's
it right.
plenty of guides out there.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I would do, my recommendation is if you're ordering something like one of these,
Mm-hmm.
let's say you are ordering it from AliExpress, that's my Anbernic flip device, is at the same time order a couple of flashcards. So this
Mm-hmm.
is a Lexar one, which is a
Yeah.
high quality one, or SanDisk is, a name that you've heard of, a recognized manufacturer. Order a couple of those at the same time. That one's a 64 gigabyte. I think they're like £5 each or something. So it's negligible cost,
Yeah.
because the cards that these ROMs come with aren't very high quality. They're very, very cheap. So they've got a high failure rate anyway.
Yeah.
If you bought it with the games on and you decided you want to keep the games, then copy the games over to somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Just copy them over into a backup drive or something like that. So if you screw it all up, at least you've got the games, access to the games again.
Absolutely.
And then follow the instructions on Retro Game Core or one of those sites, and put the operating system on that you want to use. So the one I've got on here on this Anbernic device is MUOS, which used to be called MustardOS, and there's big conversations and arguments that go on amongst Anbernic fans about whether Newly's better than MUOS or Onion's better.
Yeah.
Just don't worry about that. Just pick one.
Yeah.
They've all got pros and cons. When you've and install that, I've tended to put the games on one card and the operating system on another, just as an extra failsafe. But you don't have to do that. You can have it all on one card
Mm-hmm.
and go from there. And if it all screws up, you've still got the original card that it came with, and you can go back to that if you want to. But that's what works for me. And at least then you've got it all set up the way you want to. And you can often sort of switch the cards one to the other if you want, if you've got multiple devices. But that's worked for me. I'm not particularly technical,
Do you know, a
but
lot
I've
of
got a little
channels
bit.
do mention that about the memory cards, and obviously these devices do come with really cheap memory cards, and they always say maybe you want to copy all the stuff from that memory card because they could fail. But I've never had one of those memory cards fail on me ever,
Okay,
so I've
yeah,
never felt the need to actually do that. But I agree with you. Yep, back up everything that's on that if you're obviously planning and upgrading. Back everything up. There's
yeah.
something maybe I should also touch on. There are a few devices out there that you've got dual memory cards on. And then what a lot of the times these are because this is an Anbernic. Oh, I can't even see what the name of this one is. I think it's an RG353P. Now this I quite like this sort of style. Now these actually you can probably see at the bottom there for anyone watching. This is got 2 memory cards in the bottom. Now, usually with both in, it will maybe boot to Linux. If you take one of them out, it will probably boot into the Android system. So some of these devices
Okay.
have dual boot systems, which are quite
Right.
handy. And so you've got the best of both worlds. And
Yeah.
so if something doesn't emulate particularly great on one side, on the Linux side, you maybe find that it will probably emulate far better on the sort of Android side through a different app. It's not ideal, but it is quite good to have that sort of flexibility with some of these devices.
And if you get into it, you can start tweaking with all the settings as well. So you can change the
Yeah.
aspect ratio, and I mean that's a whole
Oh,
nother
that's a
world.
whole different thing. Yeah.
That's, that's a whole other thing as well on top of it. You don't have to do that straight away.
Yeah.
You can just play on the stock operating system if you want
That
to
is a
start.
minefield that you've just created there, because obviously a lot of these things, maybe the Linux side, you've got RetroArch running in the background, which you can sort of jump into, and you can change practically everything from backgrounds to the ratio to maybe trying to make the graphics themselves look a little better. There's so many things you can do, but it's quite easy to mess that up as well and not even know what the heck you've done. I've been down that road so many times. So yeah, it's great to be able to do that, and it's quite good fun to tinker about, but it's quite easy, obviously, to break as well. So be careful what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, that's the case of having the extra cards. I think then
Yep, totally.
you're not gonna stuff it up. So good. Well, I think we've listeners. If you're if you know what you're doing after listening to us two ramble on, as trying to look at the numbers on the backs of these devices because our eyesight's gone, then I'll be surprised. But
I'll need to
hopefully it's
take a
given you
visit
a
to
bit
the
of
opticians after this.
a guide. But well, you know, I did wonder why nobody had done one of these guides via audio format before. But I think I know the answer now because it's actually really difficult. But
Could go on for hours and hours.
yeah, you can go on for hours and hours.
This is part 1 of 50.
Pardon?
This is part 1 of 50.
Yeah, I think I might lose the remainder of my listeners. It's taken a while to get to this level, so
Yeah.
yeah, maybe we won't be doing 50 of them. But
Mm.
there are other aspects I would like to come back to because
Yeah.
obviously we've just been talking mostly about budget handhelds, but you could take this into the direction of talking about Raspberry Pi, which is probably one of the original ways of emulating games that you
Yeah.
can have all these things. Or there are other devices like the Mod Retro device. There's things like, it's not really a retro device as you pointed out to me, but Playdate and Evercade, which we've spoken a lot about. So there's
Yeah.
so many other ways of playing retro games.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got the little console boxes as well, the Super Console X or whatever they're called. There's so many different variations out there. Obviously, you've got the Playdate, but that's not really sort of emulation,
Yeah,
so
it's
to
his own
speak.
thing, isn't it?
It's its own sort of thing. But yeah, there's lots of different things out there. Raspberry Pi is its own thing completely. It's got such great support though, and it's even got its own magazine out there that you could, if you're interested in that and delving deeper, that's huge. I think I started on it and it got very overwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah,
It had a lot of potential. Not the most powerful thing though ever, but quite good fun to play around with,
yeah.
and quite different to everything else.
I haven't dipped into that yet. I think I will at some point, but I know that it's a project in its own right. So maybe
Absolutely.
rinse retro gaming out. Who knows? There'll be a Raspberry Pi podcast coming. So let's have a little try to answer that exam question. Which one would you go for? But we'll split it out a bit into sections, and then we'll come back to the overall question of which, if you're only going to buy one, which one would you buy? So let's break it down. So we'll start with budget pick. So we're talking about that up to £100. So if you were recommending to somebody, let's say they've got an interest in retro gaming, but they're not, someone that's really into it. They're coming back into it for the first time after a few years, or maybe they've never even played retro games before because they're a bit younger. What would be your budget pick for somebody, John?
I mean, obviously it depends on the aspect ratio as well, but I suppose we'll try and keep it simple. I might need to break this into a two-parter as well.
Go on then.
But now, at the cheapest, I'm going to have to pick this one because it actually surprised me, and it's not even something we've mentioned here. I don't even know who makes it. So this was from Amazon. It's called an M17 Retro Handheld, and it costs about 40 to 50 quid, and it actually surprised me. It's cheap. It looks terrible. It's cheap, but it works so well. Anything really, you could play up to PSP on this little thing. It
Can you
really,
still buy it?
yeah. I checked it out before we come on. You can still
Okay.
find it on Amazon.
Okay, we'll stick the link in.
So it was fairly recent. It was probably within the last year that I actually bought this. And I thought, well, what's to lose? It's only 40 to 50 quid, and it surprised me. See, it's not too bad. It does look quite cheap. It does actually look a lot like the Retroid Pocket 3. So if anyone's kind of wondering what it looks like, it does look like that, but it feels a lot cheaper.
So it's a horizontal handheld. It's got a D-pad. It's got thumbsticks. It's got buttons and presumably shoulder buttons and
it's. I think it's a line. It basically works off its own sort of line.
Like a 4-inch screen or something on there?
Or 4-inch screen. So it's a decent enough size screen, perfect for pretty much everything that you could think of. And as I can recall, I think it played Dreamcast, a little bit of N64, and a little bit of PSP. And for the money, you can't go wrong. Honestly, it is impressive. I don't even know who makes it. There wasn't even that like Anbernic. It's not like them or Retroid. I don't even know. It didn't really mention it. So it's one of those ones that popped up. It's still there if anyone's interested in it. It really surprised me how well it actually performed.
You said it was a two-parter. What's
your... A two-parter. So something I quite enjoyed was this. This is probably... This might be even more mid-range, to be honest, but this is like a kind of a Saturn emulator.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously an Anbernic, isn't it?
Yeah, this is the Anbernic. Oh, here we go again. The Anbernic Arc D. So there was a couple of different variations of this, and I think they were going for the sort of Saturn controller look.
Yeah.
The sort of Sega Saturn controller, but the Saturn emulation on this is actually pretty decent. It's probably not the best Saturn emulation, but it's still pretty decent, and it can play everything else underneath that we've obviously just mentioned, but it is a little bit more pricier than the M17, probably closer to 100 quid than the M17's more.
Yeah, I think you can get them under 100 quid. Yeah, I'm sure
it might be 80 to 100. I can't quite remember.
I looked into that one at the time when I bought the Flippy Anbernic, and what I liked about it from the reviews I saw is that the D-pad is quite unusual compared to the others. Apparently, it's a really good D-pad for fighting games. And
yes, it's obviously you can see it's got kind of raised a little bit. It's almost raised. You can maybe not quite see it, but you can see it maybe looking at that angle. It's raised, and it seems to be on its own sort of pivot, and it does feel really, really nice.
Yeah,
so it's perfect for those as well. Fighting games. Obviously, it doesn't have thumbsticks, so it won't be good for N64, for example.
Yeah.
So you have to weigh that up when you're sort of looking at these devices. What you're looking for? Is it PSP games you want to play? N64? If it's N64, you're going to have to pick something with thumbsticks and the D-pads, because otherwise it won't emulate properly at all.
And I think the screen aspect ratio is another consideration, isn't it? Whatever price point, because if you're really into Game Boy games, there's a load of really nice devices that have got a 1-to-1, which is close to what Game Boy was. Yep. I think 8 to 7 or something like that, but close to 1-to-1.
Yeah.
And whereas if you really want to play your Game Boy Advance games, then what's that 4:3? I can't remember, but it's a different aspect ratio. Yeah, so do have a look at that when you're thinking about buying one of these. It's quite a major consideration.
Obviously, looking at the aspect ratio of the M17 is perfect for your PSP games, because that's basically the same size of screen the PSP was. But if you're looking at something like this for PSP, it's going to have borders on it, and it won't be quite as...
And it makes it really small, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Arc D just won't sort of make the PlayStation Portable stuff look very good at all. You have massive borders at the top and bottom.
Yeah.
So some silly things to think about, but you kind of have to. It depends what you want to play.
And in that mid-priced range, £100 to £300, what would you...
Mid-range. Now, I've been a big fan of this handheld. This is the RG Cube. Anbernic RG Cube. Now, it's obviously got a square screen, so it's not going to be perfect for everything. But it emulates everything so well, from PlayStation 2 games, GameCube games. I was blown away, and the quality of it is fantastic. It's got some of the best sort of shoulder buttons on it that I've sort of seen. Great sound, great D-pads. You've obviously got your dual thumbsticks as well, so you can play N64 games, GameCube games. Nice feeling button. The square screen is going to be a bit off-putting for some games, obviously, because that's not ideal. Especially we just mentioned PlayStation Portable. Bit of a disaster. You're going to have a tiny sort of squashed screen there. But for everything else, it's absolutely fine. You want to play Pico 8 stuff? This is ideal for Pico 8. You'll love that. And pretty much everything else. It's a nice handheld.
For vertical shoot 'em ups, I know neither of us are massive shoot 'em up fans, but if that is your thing, then at least you're getting more real estate compared to.
Yep. Absolutely, that's a good point. To be honest, obviously, so if you've got vertical aspect ratio, screen will fit a lot better on this than some of the other handhelds we mentioned there. You can actually flip them and play it sort of vertical, but it's never comfortable. It doesn't really matter. It's just, if you've got a Nintendo Switch, you can do the same, but it's horribly uncomfortable to play the vertical aspect ratio games like that.
This is where slight diversion. Anybody that works at Blaze is probably shouting at their podcast app, saying the words "Tarte, Tarte," because you can play an EXP in a vertical format. But we'll come on to Evercade a little bit later. We will do a little comparison with Evercade a bit later. So yeah, that's a good mid price pick. What about the high end? I think I know what you're going to pick. But
I mean, the high end, you're going to have to look at probably the Steam Deck realistically, but it's a beast. It's a monster. It's not going to be one of these things that fits in your pocket. But if you've got a bag, you can put it in there. But the Steam Deck is incredible. But there are other things you can pick out there. The Retroid Pockets. The sort of higher end, maybe the Retroid Pocket 5, which I've not looked at yet, looks really good. So that's.
I think they're still less than 3. I think they're only in the 200s.
Yeah, so maybe that's still mid range, but I would say Steam Deck and probably you'd be looking at your Iron Neos and that type of thing.
Your Odin type stuff. Yeah. I mean, I haven't played in it, Lenovo and some of those other ones, but I think you're in a different type of gaming. You're comparing that to having gaming PC type thing, or even a replacement for, some people maybe buying a Steam Deck instead of having a Nintendo Switch or something like that. Yeah. It's a different kind of purchase, I think.
That's probably one of the reasons why I bought a Steam Deck, was because I feel that this Nintendo Switch is more for kids. Just that the thumbsticks were quite small.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sort of Steam Deck feels more like for an adult. It's more designed for that, but the Steam Deck has more to it than just playing like PC Steam games. You can obviously add your own stuff to it. You can add emulation to it, and the emulation that I play on it, it's fantastic. I could play Atari Jaguar stuff on it really well.
Yeah,
you can play original Xbox stuff on it, and probably even further than that. But it is very impressive for what it is. It really is good, and it's not. I mean, it's reasonably priced. I think you can get one for about 350 maybe, something like that.
They start out at, yeah.
It's a lot of money, but I would say it's probably been my best purchased handheld that I got.
Yeah. Also good for the indie gaming scene as well. A lot of stuff is...
Yes, absolutely. Plenty of stuff on Steam that you can pick off. Like, so you've seen the latest, like Donut Dodo, for example, that was like first on Steam. And it's such a great little version. But that's just one game. There's lots of different... I mean, there's thousands of games, maybe even hundreds of thousands of games on Steam that's been going for years and years.
Well, a lot of them Celeste started out as a Pico 8 game.
That's right, yeah.
And then became a mega hit on Steam Deck. So
Celeste, I got into the actual Steam version of that last year, and I got totally hooked. And it surprised me because it's quite a difficult game to get into.
Yeah,
really, really, it's tough. It's really hard, but it's so addictive. It's one of those ones you just keep going back and want to play. But you kind of forget it does come from Pico 8 background, which I was quite surprised about. I thought that was a demake of that game, but it was actually the original. So
that's right. I'm trying to get them onto their podcast. Actually, they've got quite an interesting. There's a very interesting story around the development and the two main people that made the game. So that's a good one. So any other recommendations or things to consider? So we've talked about obviously the price and the aspect ratio. What are the other things for a beginner you'd be saying make sure you think about?
I think you just need to think about what's your budget range, what aspect ratio, what type of games do you want to play. Do you want something that you can pick up and play right away? Do you want something that you can actually tinker with and mess about with? That's really all the things you want to think. Is it something small you want? Is it a Game Boy Advance style thing you want? Horizontal, vertical? Or you want to be playing those top end GameCube games or whatever? You need to think about that and just research. You can maybe just Google or YouTube and see some videos out there. Obviously, price range is quite important as well. So some of these higher end things do get a bit out of control of the price range that they sort of go at. But there are some nice stuff out there for 50 to 100 quid that are reasonable. I think if you're a beginner, I would probably start there for sure.
And can you answer if I was only to buy one, what would I buy?
Oh. I'm not. Jeez.
I mean, would you just go straight in and just say, just buy a Steam Deck and be done with it?
I would say just go for a Steam Deck, but I mean, the size of that would put you completely off, wouldn't it? I mean, right now I would say I really do like this RG Cube, but I know Anbernic are probably just announced something quite different, which is using the same sort of inbuilt sort of power with this, but it's not the square screen. So maybe want to look at that. But the RG Cube is a fantastic little device, and you can see it's nice and small and compact. You can take it anywhere. Whereas the Steam Deck, even though I would probably say buy that over everything, it's a monster. And the battery life, probably something else we haven't talked about. Battery life. The Steam Deck battery life is probably not the best. You maybe get 2 to 3 hours, depending on what you're playing. You might get longer. If you're playing some PC games, then it could be less than an hour, which isn't ideal. Whereas you got something like the RG Cube, you could get easily up to about 8 hours gameplay from that. So need to look at that as well. That's quite an important aspect that a lot of people forget about.
If I was to pick one, I think I'd be going with this Anbernic 35 XX SP. So it's the flippy one. I know you've got one, and I don't think you're as big a fan as I am, but
no,
I like the fact that you can just play it, shut it, not have to worry, and it's pretty protected and fairly well built for £45. The screen isn't the best on it, but it's good enough. They've just launched one of these with some thumbsticks called the RG34XX SP, and it's got a slightly different screen format that is trying to be a Game Boy Advance with thumbsticks. For some reason, that is being. I haven't got one because I think it's quite similar to that. That is being quite well reviewed at the moment. That works for me, and I think that's less than £50. I don't think you can go wrong, and they come in nice, pretty colours.
That's a good price. Actually, just kind of thought so that this one has now got an RG slide. I think is the one that they've announced. You see,
I saw that. Yeah, that didn't appeal to me, I must admit.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure about that, but I think it uses it's pretty much the same as the RG Cube, except you've got the slide function. I think it's got the wider screen rather than the square screen, so that might be more attractive. But not sure how that slide function works and how that will feel. It's like was it the PlayStation or the PSP Go that was one that slid up like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Anbernic's probably released about 3 since we've even been talking on this podcast. So that is the annoyance, and But, you don't have to go for the latest. That would be my other tip: is that if you're buying the latest model, then you're going to be paying a premium. You might as well get you can get those ones. The one I just talked about for less than £50, and the most recent one is off the top of my head, it's probably about 80. So check that. The other one is if you do like the clamshells, is do your research on this. Is getting a bit geeky now, but do your research on hinges. So Miyoo released a flip device, and everybody was moaning about the hinges on it. So do have a look into that if you want a flippy one. Some hinges are better than others, but hopefully that's been helpful. I don't know. We didn't manage to agree, but I think there's a few options.
Oh, there's plenty. There's tons. There's probably some things I never even sort of discussed or so that I forgot. This is actually a Miyoo as well. This was a Miyoo A30, and it was obviously quite similar to the PSP Go that I showed at the start.
Yeah, I bought one of those and sold it. I didn't like it.
No, I'm not really a big fan of it either. I think it was raved about, but I sort of played it, covered it, and thought I wasn't that impressed. But some people were telling me it does get better if you sort of put the another OS or operating system onto it. So it might be something that I'll look at. But it does look nice. It feels nice. But I wasn't. It just didn't blow me away at all.
It's just a little bit too tiny for me. I mean, a lot of these things
Yeah.
are fairly small at the best of times, but I think that's just a bit too small and cramped in the hand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe if you just want it for a few minutes at a time, but I think you'd probably be better off just going with the normal Miyoo Mini. If you want something small, or the Trim UI Brick, probably.
Yeah, I mean, this is my favourite aspect ratio and favourite size because it sort of fits in the hand really well. And I think a lot of handhelds, for me, I would pick them like this. Obviously, you like the flipped. I just think these sort of sit in the hand quite nicely, and you can reach the thumbsticks and the shoulder buttons really comfortably. I think that's why I quite like that style. And the same goes for this Arc D. It just fits in the hand quite nicely. That's just my opinion, right enough, rather than
Everyone's. I mean, I've got small hands, so I don't have the same little hobbit hands. So I'm fine with anything really. It's probably more my eyesight that I struggle with.
I forgot to mention this. If you like Hobbit size stuff, this would.
I'm not that hobbity. What's that?
So this is, what was this? This was the Anbernic Nano.
Oh yeah,
which was tiny. So it has a little key chain attachment, but it's practically unplayable. It looks great and it's solid. It's actually almost metallic, like that they've built it. It's solid stuff, but to actually play games on this is horrible. It's just horrible. But it looks nice. You can maybe dangle it on your keychain, but no doubt the screen would get completely obliterated.
Yep. Right. Well, let's have a quick chat before we go about Evercade, because that's normally the reason why we'll be getting on a podcast together. So, firstly, how do you square these emulation-based devices with Evercade in terms of what gets more game time, pros and cons? How would you compare them, or are they just completely different things?
So this is actually quite interesting. I probably got into Evercade roughly at the same time, which is 2020. And probably arguably I've played the Evercade stuff a lot more than the emulation handheld things. And probably because Evercade gives you, obviously it's fully licensed, it's all above board, but it gives you a selection of games to play from rather than, you kind of get paralysis and you go into one of these emulation handhelds, you've got thousands of games to choose from, you don't really know what to pick. Sometimes you'll end up going playing a familiar game. Maybe you go choose Sonic the Hedgehog or something, and then you get bored, you put it to the side. But Evercade gives you that choice of certain games. A lot of the time, perhaps games you'd never heard of, and you're discovering for the first time and getting some joy out of that. So it's giving you that sort of smaller choice range to sort of play games from, rather than just looking at thousands and thousands of ROMs. You think, I don't know what I'm looking at here, I don't know what I'm playing. So you have to say Evercade are great for that, rather than looking through tons of games. They just give you that choice of games. And I've discovered so many games from Evercade that you probably wouldn't have touched on, that like things like Flea, for example. That's just one example that you could have probably downloaded on itch.io, which I actually did. I paid for it on itch.io as well as on Evercade, so that I could play Flea on other devices as well. But they give you that choice of games that you maybe would have easily missed, and that works for the publishers as well. That these Evercade gives them that platform that they probably would never have got. So that's how I look at it, rather than having all these games to look at, and you end up playing nothing. Whereas you look at Evercade, you've got that a select amount of games. You pick something, you play it, and you get hooked or not.
Yeah, I mean, I started with a more or less clean card on my Anbernic and my Powkiddy is pretty much only for Pico 8 and the Anbernic for the same reason, because it's just paralysis, like 10,000 games, and it takes you ages finding anything, and sometimes some of the emulation isn't that good, and it's a bit buggy, or it's in Chinese or something like that. So it's a much better experience from a game selection and playing, and you get the brochure with some instructions on how to play, or at least some clues, and the box. And I think the game stuff is much more of an experience. And the other thing is that you feel like you're part of a community with Evercade. I think that's quite a big difference. That there are various forums and Discord. There's the main Discord and other Discord groups, and Reddit and various places you can go to discuss it and get game recommendations. And most of the time, on most of the forums, people are quite positive and will help you. So I think that means that you feel like you're part of something, and you might be playing the same games at the same time. Whereas the
Mm-hmm.
other things is so fragmented
Mm-hmm.
that it's just like, where you just feel like you're pissing in the wind basically. So
Yeah.
I think that's another thing that Evercade's got going for it. And I know some people do grumble about the quality of Evercade hardware and battery and the XP and stuff, and I'm not dismissing that completely. But I think on the whole, the quality of the thought that's gone into an Evercade device is really, I think they're good quality devices. You might want a bigger screen or a more polished screen
Yeah.
or whatever, but they work well. And if there's a problem with it, there is support at the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, try sending something back to Anbernic.
Forget it.
There's
See,
nobody
that's
there.
probably something we should have touched on is like the emulation. Obviously, through Evercade, generally the emulation is very, very good. Occasionally they get it wrong, yep, and they will try and fix it. But the emulation sometimes can be hit or miss on some of the devices you pick up. You could easily um, boot up a chosen game and it just stutters all over the place. It doesn't play well. Then you need to mess about, try to figure out, can I make it better? Does it run on a different core or a different emulator? Will it play faster or not? Sometimes you might not even have that choice in some of these handhelds to even change those things to make it better, and you're basically stuck. And occasionally, yep, you're going to get a lot of dodgy ROMs where you
Yeah.
maybe stick up or start up a game, nothing happens. Or a particular one that brings to mind is actually a game that's on Evercade called Alligator Hunt, which is
Oh yeah, yeah.
fantastic shoot 'em up game, and it's emulated perfectly on Evercade. But if you look at some of the Chinese Anbernic handhelds, they quite often have the dodgy ROM of that game where you start the game, everything seems fine, and you can't get out the first level because no enemies come towards you. So that it's basically a broken version of that game that's there. So it's basically another argument to say you should maybe go for something more official rather than going with these dodgy sort of handhelds, or just be wary of what you're getting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the emulation generally on Evercade is top notch, whereas at times you're not sure what you're getting on these handhelds, so
Yeah.
you need to do your homework.
Well, I think on the other side of the fence, I'd say at least with the with the emulation handheld, you've got access to other ways of buying and playing games like Pico 8 and
Sure, yep,
itch.io and
absolutely.
streaming types of things. There are other ways of purchasing games legitimately and playing those that you wouldn't be able to get on Evercade otherwise, which I think is, you can get more into the indie scene, certainly.
Oh, itch.io is fantastic. It's
Yeah.
such a great site. I've purchased many games from Spectrum Games, C64 games that are made recently, NES games, Amiga games. I mean, I've downloaded tons of stuff that I've paid for and got lots of joy out of it. But I think something that you definitely need to be careful if you are starting out. Don't just bombard your chosen emulator with thousands of ROMs that you're never going to play. I think it's quite easy. I mean, I think when I first started, you just upload as many ROMs as possible. Then you sit
Yeah.
there absolutely
Do the opposite.
50 bits, and then you think, okay, what am I playing?
Yeah.
Turn it off, play nothing. So just add the games that you want to play. Don't get carried away.
I think I've got maybe 30 games
Right.
on my
That's yeah.
main, and I've played through. Oh, what was the one I really enjoyed? Metroid Fusion. I'd
Oh,
never played that
yeah.
back in the
Right.
games
Yep.
day. Such an amazing game. I mean, I
Yep.
really enjoy playing through that end to end. It'd be nice to have games like that on Evercade.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd probably,
Unlikely though.
yeah, it is unlikely. But so there are some of those. But yeah, agree with everything else you say about Evercade. And we haven't actually spoken since Evercade's had some of its recent announcements. So they've had another showcase, and obviously we mentioned the Neo Geo that you've been playing in America
Mm-hmm.
recently. How do you think they're doing now? We're in the sort of roughly halfway point during the year. What's your sort of assessment of
I think
progress from Blaze?
I think they've certainly got some still issues with some distribution. I see some grumbles here and there, so they are working on it as far as I'm aware. But so far it's been pretty good. They've obviously had a few stumbling blocks. We had broken sword issues, but they sorted that. Um, the games I've really enjoyed that they've released. Some of them have actually surprised me. I think when I got the Windjammers and Carnoff and Friends cart, I sort of maybe I was a bit lukewarm with it. I think generally because I know the quality of carts that are coming up are better, but I probably underrated it because I actually really enjoyed playing through some of the games on it, like Atomic, Chelnoff, and Karnoff. Despite the fact that they're brutally horrible, tough games to play, I actually enjoyed them.
Yeah.
And obviously there was the other one, Gremlin Collection 2, which was really good. But they've got some good stuff coming up. The Rogue, what's the name of that game again? I forget the name. Roguecraft DX version that's coming out next month at the time of this, which is August. Is fantastic, and it's got extra levels that's not included in the Amiga standard Amiga version that's on itch.io, and that's great. That's got 16 or 10 levels, and I think the DX version is 16. And it's so addictive. It's such a great game. You could argue that it's not really worth being a single cart sort of game, but it's still excellent stuff. And obviously, we're going to start getting Neo Geo arcade carts as well. From next month too.
Yeah, they look good.
So that'll kick that off as we head into the latter part of the year. And they've got another alpha coming, the sort of Taito alpha, and they've got the Taito cart coming, which is great. I mean, that's massive news, isn't it, for Evercade and more Neo Geo stuff. But they've still got 3 carts to announce.
Yeah.
So I would expect that any time. I'm not really sure what they're waiting on. Sometimes I definitely don't understand their strategy and how they go about things. I think it begs belief, but so far so good. I'm not just sure about, they do this highlight of the month sort of thing. I think it's a bit hit and miss. I think it's good for folks that are new to Evercade and maybe they're highlighting a specific game from the old carts that maybe they never played. But I guess for those that are established, it's kind of a pointless.
I quite like it because I've probably got about half of the actually probably a bit less than that now. I got up to about half the cards and I really slowed more. So when they put them out, like they had Worms. Is Worms the current one or the previous one?
Yeah,
I didn't buy that cart, so I was like, okay, see what. I remember playing it back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go, yeah, I don't need to buy that cart. But that's fine, So for me, it's quite a nice. I think it's quite a nice thing. I'd rather they did that than having some sort of questionable quality indie games.
Maybe.
But
I think it would be interesting to know, has the highlight of the month improved sales of the cart that they're actually looking at? Like, for instance, has there been an uptake on Worms Collection 1
maybe not
this month? Or has it had the opposite effect,
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, that Alligator Hunt you mentioned earlier, that was a highlight of the month, wasn't it?
It was actually funny enough, but that was a great game. I even played through it again when it was highlight of the month, which was I'd done it with my son. We played it 2-player.
Yeah.
He was wondering what I was playing, because I was only playing the first couple of levels, and he joined in, and we just kept playing till we finished it. So there you go.
I'll tell you one I played with my son recently that, and actually my daughter wondered what was going on, and the two of them carried on playing. It was the Badger Punch hidden game.
Oh,
I can't remember what it's called, the cowboy one where you just got to shoot each other.
Oh, right, yeah.
The two of them, they were playing that for like 30, 40 minutes, just having a right good time.
Showdown, I think it was called.
Showdown, yeah. Same
Simple,
people that did.
Simple, wasn't it?
Yeah, but just things like that are nice to come in. I think I quite enjoy the hidden games when they come in with. It's just like having an extra present, isn't it, at Christmas?
Well, I'm glad you enjoy them. See the pain it causes me trying to find them.
Well, I just go evercade.info or somewhere else. I'm not going and hunting them myself.
Oh.
I think you've tried to crack the codes, haven't you, a few times? But
yes,
yeah,
many times
on everybody else's homework. But
it's fun but frustrating.
Yeah, no, I think I'm relatively to you recent into Evercade. It's my second year of playing Evercade, but it feels to me like a significant progress from last year, with some of the quality of the games. I'd like to see more indie because I really enjoy that. I'd like to see another 3 things like Roadcraft, if I'm honest, and another high quality version of Indie Heroes, and that would be my request. But they're trying to please a lot of people with a lot of different tastes, so I get that. I do understand the distribution issues are being resolved. They've got 2 new distribution partners. So at least 2. I'm aware of it. So they've got that. That's going to take a little while to iron out, but that should. They're bigger companies that they're working
Yeah,
with, so that should be better. So
hopefully. Yeah.
fingers crossed that they can just buy enough inventory to
Yeah, I
just
would like them to sort that out and maybe get regular releases rather than it seems a bit all over the place at times. We have
yeah
far too many gaps, and
yeah
it is what it is. But I just would rather it was not everything chucked into the last month of the year or the last 2 months. It's too much for people,
yeah
which
it
is
is
going to happen again. You know what's going to happen.
yeah. Well, we shall see. Well, thank you so much for coming to do this, John. We're gonna I'll do the edit on this video I'll put it out on audio and then I'll wing it over to you to see whether you want to use it for your channel. So listeners, you may be watching this as well. See how the magic or lack of magic works when we put these things together. But yeah, I think we're pretty much done. Anything else to add or anything that you're working on that you want to tell people about?
Nothing really. I'm kind of just working through some holiday stuff. Then it'll be back to doing some Evercade stuff. But I was actually contemplating I should do a video on all these retro handhelds that I've got and just the big massive collection. But it's such an undertaking that I didn't realise I had that many. I knew I had a lot, but I didn't realise it was that bad. Even though I know some people have much more, but I am going to
Does your wife know that you've got that many? That's the
probably. I
more
mean,
understanding than
I
mine.
just feel that it's a YouTube expense. She's like, oh, that's fine, no problem.
See. She knows that the podcast
She
costs
knows
me
how
money.
it works. It's fine.
The podcast costs me money, so you're spending even more money.
I mean, if I don't spend it, I'll have to lose it some way. So basically, you spend it so that you can record the cost back again with the tax. It's just how it works. Yeah, so most of those are basically just bought by myself, apart from a couple. So
yeah,
but yeah, I would ideally get rid of some of them, but they don't sell. The sell on value isn't particularly amazing. But I have got my eye on a few more. I'm contemplating the Retroid Pocket 5, maybe another, maybe the RG slide. I'm not sure. I really don't know. But
maybe do some competitions on the channel, like review them and say.
Yeah, I have done a couple of those. Generally, it was like Evercade carts, but that's probably a good idea. See if we can get rid of some of them that way. I'm sure it'll be appreciated.
Yeah, even that little nano keyring
No,
thing.
no, I don't know about that. that could be worth fortunes in some years.
It will be one day. Yeah, well, write Crazy Burger on it.
Oh yeah, I'll have to etch it because it's like metal.
It'll increase in value. It'll be a signed version from Crazy Burger.
Yeah, probably my worst purchases. Would I thought, to be honest, it's pointless as a gameplay device. Pointless.
Well, I think we've got to the end. All that remains to say, thank you for joining me, Crazy Burger.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Been great as usual.
Let's play the music.
Oh, what are you choosing?
I don't know. It'll be on in a minute. Let me press stop.